Good evening, I'm Jason Vio. Katarina is away tonight. Thanks for watching CBC Windsor News at 6. We begin tonight with a story about people who are homeless in our community. That number is growing compared to previous data, and it also tells us a bit more about who they are. The CBC's Dawson Chen has that story.
There are at least 672 homeless people living in Windsor. That's the figure from the most recent and most comprehensive tally of the city's unhoused population. The federally mandated point-in-time count was conducted over the course of 4 weeks in October 2024. The resultant figure, 672 homeless, is higher than previous counts. And the survey found that 19% of respondents had arrived in Windsor within a year or less. Those are concerning numbers for councillors like Ward 8's Gary Kaschak.
Is there any way we can address this and to not just keep having this influx of out-of-towners here? And I see that they like that we have such good social services here.
But according to the city's manager of homelessness and housing support, the data does not suggest Windsor is a major migration draw for the homeless. The majority of those surveyed said they'd been living in Windsor 10 years or more. Windsor's last point-in-time count was done in 2021. It reported 251 homeless, more than 400 fewer people than the latest count. City administration says the 2024 count was affected by having a longer survey period, 4 weeks instead of 1 week. Still, Dana Palladino, the city's acting commissioner of Human and Health Services, acknowledged that Windsor's homeless population seems to be growing.
I mean, we only know what the information that comes into us, but I would say that, yeah, it's a combination of things. I think in this PIC count, you have the methodology change, but I also think that there probably is an increase in homelessness. I think it's a challenge that we're seeing throughout Canada, not just specific to us.
The October 2024 point-in-time count included questions to build a better understanding of the composition of Windsor's homeless population. 57% of survey respondents were single adult men between 25 and 49 years old. 34% identified as female. 41% said they first experienced homelessness by age 24 or younger. 98% expressed a clear desire for permanent housing. There was a significant increase in older adults. The survey counted 35 homeless people aged 60 or older. 3 years ago, there were 9 people in that category. Rukshini Panayagulan, executive director of the Downtown Mission, agrees with the survey's findings.
Right now, we are almost at capacity nightly, which obviously indicates that there's more people who are experiencing homelessness in our region currently, unfortunately. And the Mission is not the only shelter, of course. There's other shelters who are experiencing the same large numbers right now.
Kenroy Drummond, a Windsor homeless man who stays at the Downtown Mission, says he's been trying to overcome his crack addiction.
So every time I do it to just numb how I feel, because there's so much things I want to do, but I'm stuck trying to put it behind me.
As part of federal direction to get a better grasp of the homelessness issue, point-in-time counts will occur more frequently. Street counts will happen every year, with Windsor's next one set for this October. Full questionnaires of the homeless will occur every 3 years, with Windsor's next one scheduled for October 2027. Dawson Chen, CBC News, Windsor.
Premier Doug Ford has reversed a pledge he made just last week. He said the province would be issuing work permits for asylum seekers, something that's normally a federal responsibility. Now that's off the table. Queen's Park reporter Lorenda Redekop explains.
Premier Doug Ford had a different message today about his government's involvement in issuing work permits for refugee claimants.
What I'm saying, we aren't taking it over.
But just last week, during meetings with all the premiers, he said he would be doing that.
I'll speak for Ontario. We will be issuing our own work permits. We aren't going to sit around and wait for the federal government.
He said premiers are frustrated with delays, even naming a section of the Constitution they'd use to take more control, Section 95. But today,
I don't want to take the responsibility off the federal government, but in saying that, if you have a pulse and you're healthy, you need to be working.
Ford says getting work permits for asylum seekers can take 2 years.
A lot of these folks that are here, they want to work. We're paying them to sit around, which is crazy.
The federal government disputes that 2-year figure, saying work permits can be provided in as fast as 2 weeks. with the average processing time a bit longer, a month and a half, saying that the extra time is as refugee claimants provide their required medical exam or an updated Canadian address.
I have seen people receive work permits in a very short time. Yes, 14 days, 2 weeks.
This pastor used to house asylum seekers at his church. He says the process isn't always that quick.
But yes, I could not agree more when it comes to the need, very desperate need, for the process to be faster.
This all comes as the federal government is planning to stop housing asylum seekers at hotels as of the end of September, saying it's shifting from that emergency housing to more sustainable and cost-effective alternatives.
I'm very concerned, which the Prime Minister never mentioned to me, about cutting off the funding in literally a month.
Premier Ford and his Minister of Labour also want more control over which immigrants come to Ontario and what jobs they're qualified to fill. Lorenda Redicott, CBC News, Toronto.
And Colette Kennedy joins us live now for a quick peek at weather. Colette, that storm late this afternoon kind of just swooped in. We heard some rumblings, the rain, and it seems to have stopped now.
Yeah, you know, there's still some active weather in the area, but that is where I want to focus is with what's been going on here with these thunderstorm clusters through the region. So the severe thunderstorm warning still in place here, although, yes, in terms of what's happening on the radar, it is weakening somewhat. Not only that, but it's also moving out over the lake. It was pretty busy this afternoon. Look at all these lightning strikes across Lake St. Clair, but now it's moving out over Lake Erie, and we're getting some, you know, drying occurring behind this. Still a little busy there in Leamington. You need to be cautious with really strong winds and those heavy downpours, so flash flooding is a concern. I'll have your whole forecast coming up.
Thanks so much, Colette. The deadline for reaching a trade deal between Canada and the U.S. is just days away. Mark Carney says trade negotiations with Washington are at an intense phase, but the Prime Minister says he won't settle for a deal unless it's good for Canadians. David Thurton reports.
In the birthplace of Confederation, Mark Carney spoke about how he's making a deal for Canada.
The assurance for Canadian business, for Canadians, is we will only sign a deal that's the right deal, that's a good deal for Canada.
The outcome is still uncertain, but the Prime Minister offered a glimpse into trade talks.
The negotiations are at an intense phase. It's a complex negotiation. You see with the various trade deals that have been agreed by other jurisdictions.
Carney's comments follow this.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
The head of the European Commission and the U.S. President signed a preliminary agreement, the European Union settling for a 15% tariff on most of its goods.
I knew it at the beginning, and it was indeed very tough, but we came to good conclusions for both sides.
This is probably the biggest deal ever reached in any capacity, trade or beyond trade.
The question now, what will Canada's deal look like, and will it resemble the others the U.S. has signed?
Important as we are in terms of trade numbers to the U.S., it's hard to see how if Japan, Indonesia, the UK, the EU have all agreed to a baseline tariff, will somehow be exempt.
It is likely that that 15% will be considered by the Trump administration as almost a baseline tariff.
The Prime Minister, though, says Canada's trading relationship with the U.S. looks different.
So there are similarities, there are differences.
One notable difference, the extent the U.S. relies on Canada for its oil. We send them about 4 million barrels per day, a point of leverage, Carney suggested, as the trade deadline looms. David Thurton, CBC News, Ottawa.
So what happens if a deal isn't reached by this Friday's deadline? What would the consequences be for Carney? Windsor political scientist Lydia Miljan says it would put the Prime Minister in a difficult spot.
You know, during the election campaign, it was all he was going to be the guy to stand up to Trump and he was going to get a good deal. But obviously, since the election not so long ago, he's been really toning down our expectations. But not getting a deal, knowing that the Europeans have a framework or that there are other deals made with other countries, I think would put us in a bad position, especially since there's going to be some economic consequences to that. If we're hit with 35%, 50% tariffs on our major manufacturing sector and our export market, that's going to hurt Canadians. It's going to hurt them in their pocketbook, and that might end Mark Carney's honeymoon.
In other news, Ontario Liberal leader Bonnie Crombie says she will spend the summer pitching a message of unity to party members. She's trying to fend off a bid to remove her as leader after failing to win a seat at the legislature earlier this winter. CBC Queen's Park reporter Sean Jeffords has that story.
Hi everyone. I've been traveling across the province, participating in regional meetings, but I wanted to share some of my thoughts directly with you about what went well in the last election and, well, what didn't.
Ontario Liberal leader Bonnie Crombie taking stock of the party's performance in the election earlier this year. She faces a mandatory leadership review in September and calls for her removal. That video is part of a campaign Crombie and her team are waging as she fights to stay on.
Certainly the membership thought I was the right person in December of 2023, and I think they still believe so today. And I'm here to rebuild trust and to rebuild and revitalize our party.
But much has changed since she won the leadership. Doug Ford's Progressive Conservatives called the snap vote and won a third straight majority government. Crombie's Liberals came second in the popular vote, won 14 seats, and secured new resources. Despite that, they remain the third-place party in seat count, and Crombie failed to win her own riding. And because of that, a group calling themselves New Leaf Liberals say a change in leadership is needed.
We are strictly calling for the current leadership to recognize that they have failed us and that it's time for us to move forward with change so that we can build a stronger Ontario Liberal Party.
Arfin worked for leadership candidate MP Nate Erskine-Smith during the 2023 leadership race. But he says the group isn't affiliated with the former federal minister. Erskine-Smith says he too wants the party to hold the new leadership race. He placed second to Crombie in 2023, but hasn't said if he'll run again.
A new leadership race would attract talent, it would attract contributions, it would attract public attention, and that's exactly what we need if we're going to renew this party in a serious way.
This expert says the infighting among the Liberals is a symptom of larger problems.
The political base of parties is often very impatient and expect magic from leaders when really they're the ones who have to make the magic happen through organization.
The Ontario Liberal Party constitution says that Crombie needs just over 50% of the vote to keep her role. But the New Leaf Liberals maintain that Crombie will need at least 66% support in the vote to keep the job as leader. The Ontario Liberal Party annual general meeting takes place in Toronto from September the 12th to the 14th. Sean Jeffords, CBC News, Toronto.
After years of working from home, Canadian employees are being ordered back to the workforce, a move many of them are not happy about. Nisha Patel has those details.
Trains are packed and sidewalks crowded as more companies require workers to return to the office.
I have to go on site. I would prefer work from home.
A new Angus Reid survey says 79% of Canadian workers say they'd prefer remote or hybrid work. Out of those who have been asked to be back on site, 51% are upset or very upset. 32% say it didn't make a difference. Only 17% were pleased.
A lot of workers push back against the narrative that you need to be in the office in order to be productive because the pandemic taught us that, in fact, we can have business as usual.
But in a tougher economy, workers have less leverage.
There is more opportunity for employers to sort of compel workers to do what the organizations want.
4 of Canada's big banks are reining in remote work. Employees will need to work from the office 4 days a week in the fall. Starbucks, too, its CEO telling staff, "We are reestablishing our in-office culture because we do our best work when we're together." And Rogers is reportedly asking workers to be in the office full-time in the new year.
If you are recalling your employees, you do need to give pretty substantial notice.
This lawyer says workers need to take a close look at their contract if they're unhappy with return to office mandates.
If the term is in your contract that this is a fully remote position, it's clear. Your employer can't change that term of your employment.
Workers have been vocal about the benefits of hybrid schedules, saving them time, money, and offering some work-life balance.
I think if you're a professional and you're objective-driven, then it's much better that you give people the flexibility to be where they work the best.
While the tides against working from home may be turning, workers will likely find it tough to give up. Nisha Patel, CBC News, Toronto.
Still to come, auto thefts in Canada are being labeled a crisis, but things may be changing. That story after the break. Auto thefts have reached crisis levels across Canada in the last few years, but a new report suggests the upward trend is hitting a speed bump. But as Thomas Degla reports, experts aren't celebrating just yet.
Using schemes that are now well rehearsed, thieves in Canada are still making off with a reported 5 stolen vehicles an hour.
Sorry, lady.
But that's far fewer than at the same time last year. According to a new insurance industry report, Ontario and Quebec are seeing the biggest drops, with auto thefts down by more than 20%.
So it's great, encouraging numbers, but still a lot of work to be done.
Equité Association credits police and governments for cracking down, and even drivers for using devices as simple as that old-fashioned steering wheel lock.
Thieves are incredibly adaptive, resourceful, and high-tech, and they will use new techniques.
Indeed, CBC News still found this 2021 Jeep Wrangler, now advertised for sale in Dubai, after it was reported stolen in Quebec. Experts also warn more stolen vehicles are being stripped for parts, so they can't be recovered.
we're not just seeing the brand new vehicles that are being stolen. We're seeing the vehicles now that, 2018 to 2023, the trend is going there now because the security features aren't there.
At the height of Canada's auto theft crisis, insurance premiums soared. And just last month, TD Insurance pointed to a significant increase in auto thefts as it warned Ontario customers about more price adjustments to come.
I haven't heard anything from any of the insurance companies yet that with theft going down that they're going to readjust the rates. Nothing. I haven't heard up, down, anything.
The Insurance Bureau of Canada tells us steeper premiums aren't just due to auto theft, but also higher vehicle prices and repair costs. So in other words, although fewer cars are being reported stolen these days, that doesn't mean insurance prices will be going down anytime soon. Thomas Daigle, CBC News, Toronto.
Now to international news, there's a new diplomatic push today for greater peace and stability in the Middle East. A United Nations conference has been discussing a possible two-state solution involving Israelis and Palestinians. This comes as the war in Gaza nears the 22-month mark. Journalist Mitch McCann has been following these developments.
Foreign ministers and delegates gathered here at the UN in New York to discuss how to navigate and implement a two-state solution. That is, a Palestinian state alongside Israel living in peace in the Middle East. Now, working in this building, covering the UN, it's fair to say there are many conferences and summits that don't always lead to meaningful change. But the UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres this morning underscored how important it is to him that something concrete steps come from this conference, especially at such a critical moment in the Middle East. Here is Antonio Guterres.
Today's conference is a rare and indispensable opportunity. We must ensure that it does not become another exercise in well-meaning rhetoric. It can and must serve as a decisive turning point, one that catalyzes irreversible progress towards ending the occupation and realizing our shared aspiration for a viable two-state solution.
The US continues, of course, to be a staunch supporter of Israel, and in a report from Reuters earlier today, they quoted the US State Department, which said this conference is, quote, a gift to Hamas, which continues to reject a ceasefire proposals accepted by Israel that would lead to the release of hostages and bring calm in Gaza. So the US is not on board, and Israel is not either. Israel's ambassador to the UN, Danny Danon, said this conference does not promote a solution, but rather deepens the illusion. He said instead of demanding the release of hostages and working to dismantle Hamas, the conference organisers are engaging in discussions that are disconnected from reality. So Israel and the United States, the two nations that won't be involved in this. What cannot be overlooked here at this conference is that it comes at a very critical time, given what we are seeing right now in the Middle East and these images of starvation that have been broadcast around the world. Israel is certainly under a mountain of pressure here at the UN as many countries call for more aid to be delivered to Gaza immediately.
Journalist Mitch McCann in New York. Canada's Foreign Affairs Minister spoke at the UN on Monday morning. She expressed support for a two-state solution. She said the world must stand together and choose a path that leads to, quote, a sustainable and just solution. Well, still to come here on CBC Windsor News, Colette Kennedy is standing by live with your full weather forecast coming up right after the break. Colette Kennedy joins us live now for our detailed look at weather. Colette, we did go to a Tigers game yesterday when they were taking on the Jays, and boy, were we baking in the sun up in the 300 section.
Yes, well, I was glad to hear that Ben got to go to his first Major League game, though. That's really awesome for him. And
he loved it.
You know, all of these different things that we love to do at this time of year, you just have to be extra careful and cautious because it really can be a situation where, oh my goodness, it's almost too much. And so lots of water, that's one thing. And nobody needs permission to have ice cream, but that also can help make you feel a little better. In our forecast for tomorrow, we're talking about 32 degrees. It's going to feel again close to 40 with that humidex. A chance for a few isolated showers. I know we've had some active weather. I'm going to get to that here in just a moment, but we've got to talk about the ice cream melting forecast. What are the probabilities? Well, I'd say of all these options, yeah, it's the fast melt. Hey, where to go? That's what I'm going with. All right, there you are. Temperatures now, and that's thanks to that cluster of storms wheeling on through. It's brought them right down after being in the low 30s. The humidex actually brought down a little bit too. That won't last. It's still going to be sticky as we get back into the overnight and through tomorrow. And that heat warning is in place with us, and it looks like likely till about midweek, and that's when we'll see those changes. Earlier in the show, I was showing you the severe thunderstorm warning, especially due to the winds and the downpours from some of these storms. However, they have been weakening. They've been tracking eastward, and you can see that action mostly over Lake Erie. I would have not wanted to be out on Lake St. Clair with all of this rolling through and all of those lightning strikes there. So things are improving. Still some active weather around Leamington. You can see that we're getting tagged around that region and Pelee Island, and then that continues to move on over the next half hour or so to an hour, and then it's gone. And then as we move into tomorrow, only a slim chance of something bubbling up. It's really more so towards Wednesday we get a better chance, but even then it's pretty isolated in terms of the showers or thunderstorms that come our way. But they're just getting into that changeover to some new conditions and slightly more comfortable air. Chance of showers into Thursday as well. Overnight tonight, 22 degrees is going to be your low. There we go, up to 32 tomorrow. On Wednesday, it's still going to feel like we're at least in the mid-30s, I would say, but you can see the temperature beginning to come down. And then this is some drier air, not so sticky as we get into midweek and the end of the week.
I'm glad to see there's a bit of a cool down coming. Thanks so much, Colette.
You're welcome.
And that's it for us here at CBC Windsor News. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you back here tomorrow night.
Good night.